What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another video here in Toledo, Ohio. We have a mini meetup game, and then the next video we're playing a 5, 10, 20 live stream. That's going to be in 3 days from now. But for today, we have a 1, 2, and 2, 5 meetup game. All these tables behind us. People came out from all across Ohio and Michigan. If you guys like this video and are not subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment down below. Let's get right into the hands. Let's go! We're at a new card room for the vlog, The Reserve. On the walls are amazing murals paying homage to the legends of the game. Let's meet the first table. We hop into the 1-2 for $400. First hand of the night, I look down at the beautiful ace-queen offsuit from the +1 position. I start with a standard raise to $15, and 2 players put in the call. That means we are going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes ace-jack deuce with 2 clubs. Pretty great for us, self-explanatory. I have top pair with a very good kicker. So when the action's on me, I decide to check. Why? I'm in between 2 players. That usually means I'm going to start with a check. I don't deviate here, and we're off to the turn when he checks behind, bringing in the 5 of hearts on the turn. The big blind checks it over to me. Now I'm going to get some value against any of the worst aces, maybe some jacks that don't believe me, and the club flush draw, so I decide to bet out for 30 bucks into the $46 pot. When both players find a fold, we're going to find ourselves some new chips to go to battle with in the next few hands. Alright, we're on the button with 6-3 of spades, and I decide to put in the $10 straddle. Small blind is Otone. If you guys watched the last vlog from Toledo, he was a staple of that vlog, and I'm pretty sure he's going to find himself in this video a few times. So we got Otone here. He drove 3 hours from Columbus. Otone, how do we say bang in Japanese?
Bang!
He puts in the call, and the big blind, who goes by Jace, puts in the call. I decide to check my option, and we are off 3 ways in position to a flop. Flop comes king jack 5 with 2 spades, so I have the front door spade draw and I have the back door straight draw. Additionally, I don't block any of the opponents from having any assortment of king queen, maybe a hand like queen 10 or ace jack. Otone decides to bet out for $15. So yeah, maybe he has a king or a jack here. We're going to find out. The action is on Jace. Jace decides to put in the call, and now do I go for a raise? I don't really think I can get anyone to fold a king or a jack in this spot, so let's just put in the call and hopefully see a good turn card. Come on, dealer, one time. Turn card is not so good. It pairs the top card coming a king of diamonds. However, a caveat would be if someone has a hand like ace king, king queen, maybe even a hand like king 10, and somehow we can get to a river and spike a spade, man, we're going to get all those chips, right? Otone decides to start with a check. Jace checks it over to me, and because I think someone might be slow playing a decent hand, I decide to check behind. We get gin on the river. It comes the 10 of spades. We river the flush. Otone now decides to pick up the betting lead once again and bets out for $35. Jace in the big blind thinks about it for a while, but ultimately finds a fold. Great job, Jace. You saved yourself 35 bucks because I'm definitely not smooth calling this $35 bet. I'm going to come in for a raise in this spot, and I decide that the proper price to make it is $105. So yeah, I make it $105. Otone does not want to put in any additional chips. It's likely he had some sort of a jack type of hand. Either way though, I'm taking on that $215 pot. Alright, still at the first table, I look down at ace-king offsuit from the big blind, and I decide to raise it up to $15 because someone on the button decides to put in the $5 button straddle. I raise it up to $15, and Otone under the gun puts in the call. Jason, the +1, decides to re-raise to $50. Interesting spot for me. I find myself in the big blind. I raise it to $15, 1 call, and then a 3-bet to $50. Could come in for a 4-bet. Although in these small stakes games, I don't really know how wide they're 3-betting, so I decide to just put in the 50 bucks, which I know might bring in Otone as well. You don't really want to go multi-way with this kind of a hand, but that's what I decided to do. I just put in the 50 bucks, and Otone comes in as well, so that means we are going 3 ways to a flop. With a decent sized pot, a good amount out there, it comes ace queen deuce with 2 spades. Once we get 3-bet, we're going to check our range on this flop. Otone doesn't decide to do that though. He bets out for 50 bucks. The +1, who was the pre-flop 3-better, he gets out of the way, and the action is back over to me. I look over at Otone's stack and he has around $200 effective, so if he has any sort of draw like King Jack, King 10, maybe some random spades in his hand, we want to get the money in now, so I decided to put in the check raise all in for $200. He doesn't think about it for too long before putting in the call, and just like that, we are off to a run out. Turn card comes a Queen of Clubs, river comes a 6 of Hearts. I turn over my cards, he shows us Ace 9 of Clubs. No bueno, Otone, we are going to take down that $556 pot. Kind of a cooler, we both ended up having 2 pair, but my kicker was superior. Alright, last hand here from the first table. I look down at Ace King offsuit once again from the low jack. I decide to open it up to $15 in both the cutoff and the small blind both put in the call. That means we are going 3 ways to a flop in between 2 opponents. Flop comes Ace Deuce Deuce with 2 clubs, and Ronnie checks it over to me. You guys know how I play. If I'm in between 2 opponents, it's almost assuredly that I'm going to start with a check. That's what I do. I check it over to Jace, who decides to check behind. Bringing in an interesting card, it comes a 4 of Clubs. The front door club flush draw now is complete. When the action's on Ronnie, he checks it over to me for a second time. And now I'm going to get some value. I decide to bet out for 30 bucks into the $47 pot. Jace finds the fold. Ronnie does not. He puts in additional chips. That means we are going heads up to the river. River now comes a 7 of Hearts. And Ronnie leads into me for 20 bucks here, which is kind of strange. Not exactly sure what he would just be calling me on the turn with to lead the river. So I'm going to go for some more value. Because I checked the flop with my ace, I think it's possible he could be doing this with an ace 10, ace 9 type of hand. So I decided to raise him up for $60. Maybe could even go a little bit larger, because if I was bluffing in this spot with a hand like King Queen with the King of Clubs, Queen Jack with the Queen of Clubs, I probably would want to go larger and disincentivize him from calling with like pocket 10s or pocket 9s. But either way though, when I raise it up to 60 bucks, he decides to put in the call. I turn over my cards, he mucks his. That means we are taking down yet another pot here at the first table. And I know they don't want me to leave, but I haven't lost a hand at this table, so maybe they'll fill my seat with someone a little bit more fishy. First hand over here, we look down at Ace Queen offsuit from the small blind. Kyle in middle position opens it up to $10. The player in the low jack puts in the call, and I raise it up to 40 bucks. Pretty standard so far, until Brevin in the big blind decides to 4-bet to $150, and everyone folds it back over to me. Brevin putting in the cold 4-bet is a little bit strange. It's possible he could be thinking I'm doing this light, but I didn't drive all the way over to Toledo to fold my ace queen offsuit, so if he wants to play for stacks, let's do it, Brevin. I decided to 5-bet jam for $350 effective. Obviously, I have him covered, and the action's back over to him. Now, we don't get a snap call, which is interesting, so it's possible he was doing this light, and that's definitely what we want to see. Now I definitely want to call, right? If he was 4-betting me light with a hand like 5s or 6s, put in the call here. We're going to hit a queen and scoop. Maybe if he has a hand like ace-jack or ace-10 he could have been doing this with. I'm getting the sense he does not want to put in the call, so I summon my inner Antonio Esfandiari and try to get him to call with my words.
I'll give you 2 reasons to call. It's not much more, and you'll make the bluff.
And you'll make the bluff.
What? That's where he makes all his money. That's how he makes his money. I like it. And I have like a 65-35% chance of putting a bang sticker on you.
Doesn't appear that that worked. He folds his cards. I turn over the Queen of Clubs and muck my cards. We're going to take down that nice sized pot there with the aggressive 5-bet. The only other interesting thing that happened on this table was a straight flush. Yes, Rich hit a straight flush for an additional $100 high hand. That's pretty crazy. Straight flush at the reserve in Toledo, Ohio. Alright, first hand over here, we look down at Ethan's favorite hand from the small blind. The action folds to me, so I open it up to 10 bucks. And the big blind Mike, he decides to put in the call. The flop comes King 3-3 with 2 clubs, and I decide to start with a check. Mike checks it behind, bringing in the 4 of clubs on the turn. We turn the boat. Staying in flow, I decide to under-rep my hand and check it over to Mike. I think betting here would get him to fold a lot of his worst hands, where if I check to him, he's going to bet a lot of his made hands, and then also bet a lot of his bluffs too. So I like a check here, going for a check raise, and Mike decides to take the bait and bets out for $20. Obviously, I didn't check here just to call. I'm going to go for the check raise, getting value from all of his kings, all of his threes, and all of his club flush draws. I mean, a ton of great hands here to get value from. And I go for the check rizzy all the way up to 75 bucks. But it turns out that Mike was bluffing here on the turn. It looks like I got max value given his exact hand. He mucks his cards, and we're going to take down that 115. All right, with $900 in my stack, I look down at King Jack offsuit from the low jack. $5 button straddles on, and the big blind, who goes by Jim, raises it up to $15. I decide to put in the 3-bet to 40 bucks. Jim puts in the call, and we are heads up to the flop. Flop comes ace 8-4 with 2 clubs, and he checks it over to me. It's a good board for my range. On top of having all the strong aces, I'm going to have pocket aces and pocket 8s. I decide to toss in 25 bucks. He puts in the call, and we see the 3 of spades peel off on the turn. He checks it over to me once more, and I decide now to check behind. When he's calling me on this flop, he could have a club flush draw, but he's also going to have a lot of aces. I think checking behind here is kind of a mistake. I want to blow him off a lot of his flush draws, and I also want to get him off some of his weak aces as well. So yeah, I check behind, but I think it's kind of a small mistake, and that brings in the 10 of diamonds on the river. Jim checks it over to me for a 3rd time, so let's see if I can rectify my mistake on the turn. I like a pot-sized bet here on the river, just putting a lot of pressure on any of his club draws, weak aces, maybe any pair of 8s, or maybe pocket 9s, pocket 7s. Hands that have me beat, we want to bet large here and get them to fold. And let's see if I heed my advice. I do. I decide to bet out a little stack of green chips, $125 into the $136 pot. Jim's thinking about it for a little while, which has me a little bit concerned, but ultimately he folds a flush draw. No, wait, he folds a straight flush draw with a pair. Wow, I got him to fold an ace there. I did not expect that, but I guess it was the nut low ace, so yeah, maybe you can fold that occasionally given my line. But yeah, it feels pretty good to scoop in that pot with king high. And just like that, we're done with our 1-2 meetup. We're going to head over to the 2-5 game, see if there's any fish over there that want to battle with me. Got 2 interesting hands to go over with here. I look down at ace-jack offsuit from the low jack. I open it up to $20, and Kyle on the button puts in the call. That means we're going heads up to a flop, which comes queen 4-4 rainbow. I decide to continuation bet for 25 bucks. I'm going to have all the strong queens. He could have some 4s in his range, but it's probably going to be a combination of 5-4 suited or ace-4. So not too many of them. I'm not exactly worried. I fire out for a quarter, and he puts in the call, bringing in the 5 of spades on the turn. I decide now to check it over to him. When he calls me on this pretty dry board, he either has a queen, a 4, or a pocket pair. If I check it over to him, we're going to find out exactly what type of hand he has. And when he checks behind, I'm putting him on not a great one. That check is not very strong. And the king of spades is a perfect card on the river to go for a bluff and try to get him off any pocket pair type of hand. And maybe even some of his weak queens might fold if I go for a large bet on this river. I decide that 75 bucks is the proper bet to make. He decides to fold his cards. I'll never know what he had. Did I get him to fold a queen? What about a pocket pair? Who knows? All I know is $93 are coming my way. And now, quite possibly the most interesting hand of the night. I look down at the ladies from the cutoff. I've worked my stack up nicely to $950. So you know when you have money in your bank, the ladies are going to come running. And sure enough, here they are. The button $15 straddle is on. The low jack raises it up to $50. I'm obviously coming in for a 3-bet, and I decide on the right price is $125. You don't need to go too large when they already established they have a good hand. You kind of want to go for an in-between bet like $100 to $150. So really liking my $125 bet. The button puts in the cold call, so that's a little bit interesting. And the low jack puts in the call as well. That means we are going 3 ways to a flop. I'm out of position against the button, and it comes king 8-6 with 2 spades. The low jack checks it over to me. I decide to check because I'm out of position to the button. And the button checks behind, so I don't really think he has any kings in his hand, right? If you check behind on the flop with 2 spades out there, that'd be a pretty risky play. So putting him on some other random assortment of hands like 10s or jacks, maybe even aces if he's going to cold call me pre-flop. Who knows? The 8 of clubs peels off on the turn, and the low jack checks it over to me once again. I decide now to check it over to the button once again. My logic being, if I bet here, I'm going to get called by all the club draws and all the kings. If I check though, I can get him to put in some more money potentially as a bluff, given the fact that both opponents have checked him on the flop and the turn. That's what I decided to do, getting a little bit trappy here. And the button decides to bet out for $150. I look over at his stack and he has around $365 in there. The low jack gets out of the way to this $150 bet, and the action's back onto me. He has around $365 total with that $150 already out there. And I decide just to put it all in here. I have the queen of spades in my hand, which isn't exactly the best one because it blocks some of his spade flush draws. So I'm not exactly sure what I'm trying to get to fold, but at the same time, I kind of just went with my read that he doesn't have a king in his hand. And yeah, I decided to rip it all in for 365. He puts in the call, and we are off to a run out. $1,100 pot. Let's see what the river card brings in. It comes the 10 of spades, which isn't a great card because now all of his spade bluffs now get there. And now some other random bluffs like 7-9 now make a straight. But it turns out he did not need that river card. He has 8-9 suited, so we end up turning trips. My flop check let him get there, and he's going to scoop down that $1,100 pot. A lot of my profits going over to the button, which doesn't feel great, but I still think I booked a small win on this session. I rack up my chips and head over to the cage.
2, 3, 4, 20, 30, 5, 6, 7.
Thank you. Alrighty guys, that wraps up our 1-2 and 2-5 meetup game here in Toledo, Ohio. I got into the game for 400, worked it all the way up to like 950 or 1,000. Gave some back at the end there at the 2-5. Ended up getting out for 437, a profit of $37. Shout out to everyone who came out. I'm moving now into the live stream booth. I'm playing 5, 10, 20. I'm in for $3,000. So if you guys want to see that video, be sure to tune in 3 days for that video. Subscribe if you're not already. And good luck on the felt, you guys. I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks. Thanks for watching to the end of my video. Click my head below to subscribe and stay in the loop. See you next time.